Your seats, we're going to begin. Welcome, everyone. My name is Harlan Johnson. I'm the moderator tonight. I'm here as a friend of the League of Women Voters. The League of Park Rapids, Minnesota is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues and influence in public policy through education and advocacy. If you need more information, like more information on the League, be on the back table back there, or speak to one of the volunteers. I want to thank you for coming to tonight's event. I'd like to thank the participants for agreeing to come tonight, and they've been both provided with a set of the rules for our forum tonight. I'd also like to thank the volunteers who have been here. C.C. Weiss, President of the League of Women Voters. Luann Bird-Huff is going to be the timekeeper. And Carol Ashton volunteered as signing people in. I'd also like to thank the Guthrie Township provided meeting space and for Chet Weinlander for making all these arrangements and putting out signs and promoting tonight's event. There are refreshments that are available right over here. They'll be available anytime during the thing, during this forum and afterwards. And donations are appreciated. Restrooms are located where you first came in. And please silence your cell phones as we begin. Like I said, candidates have received the ground rules. As audience members, I ask you to remain quiet as possible so that everybody can have a chance to hear what the candidates have to say. Hold any applause until the end of the forum. And if you care to ask the candidate a question, please go to the back and have a card filled out, and the card will be brought up here. Our rules are that nobody is asking questions except for the moderator, and I'm reading the questions that have been provided on these cards. Questions have been screened, and similar questions may be consolidated. So if a lot of people are wanting the same thing, it's only going to be asked once in the way that accompanies everybody's wishes. One of the things is that no questions of personal nature or inappropriate, hostile, questions of unclear intent will be asked or allowed. And our goal is to have a civil discussion on the issues and to give you information you need to know when you vote on November 6th. And with that, I'd like to say again, thanks for coming, guys. And we're going to start out first by introducing Jonathan Freed.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Jonathan is our county attorney, and he brought his opponent with him.
Yeah, he's someone. I don't have an opponent, but running unopposed doesn't mean that I don't take the position really seriously. And any questions I'm glad to answer. I'm not here to debate anyone, but I will definitely answer any questions I can. So feel free to ask me anything.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Calvin Hennison, County Commissioner of Crawford County. And with that, start out with a 2-minute introduction. And the order of questions were by alphabetical, so if you'd each give us a 2-minute introduction, starting with you, Sheriff.
Thank you. I'm your Sheriff, Koriakis, and I'm born and raised here in Hubbard County. Got a degree in criminal justice from Bemidji State University. Started with Hubbard County 28 years ago, actually, as a deputy sheriff, hired by Larry Johnson and Cal Johansson there. Been a dare officer, patrol officer, been a sergeant for 5 years with the county, and then your sheriff for the past 8 years. Married to a school teacher, Molly, got 2 kids, and very proud of all of that. Started my career with Hubbard County, and I never left, and that was my goal from day one. I didn't want to go anyplace else, and I was committed to right here. Been a dedicated officer and a dedicated sheriff as well. I made public safety my priority 8 years ago, and I still do that today. I'm a 48-year-old with 28 years with Hubbard County, and I can tell you this, I know the county very, very well. I'm very proud of my staff that I've surrounded myself with. These men and women truly make this a better department. And to be honest with you, that's the only thing I even ask credit for is who I've surrounded myself with, because I have an absolute great staff. Accountability means absolutely everything to me, and I campaigned on that 8 years ago. I've operated that way for the past 8 years, and I still concentrate on that today. Whether it's the dispatcher, that you're talking to on the phone, or the deputy that shows up at your door, they're accountable to me, and I'm accountable to you, plain and simple. Holding criminals accountable is equally as important, and I think we do a very good job with that. I've served on the board of directors for the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. I'm currently the board chair of Headwaters Intervention Center. I sit on the school safety committees in multiple schools in Hubbard County. I'm on the Safe Roads Coalition, Hubbard in Prevention, which is HIP.
Finish your sentence.
All right. And I'm on the dementia-friendly community as well. Just got a little bit more. Or are you holding this?
Yep.
Tight? Okay.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank everybody for showing up here. I'm Dion Pedersen. I'm a state trooper. I started my career back in 1989 as a Norman County Deputy Sheriff. I was there for 8 years. During that time, it was a smaller county which we were responsible for transporting, booking basically our own prisoners, transporting into the jail in Crookston if we didn't have anybody there. I wrote a grant, started the DARE program. I was a DARE officer there for several years as well. While there, I assisted with starting the Noman SWAT team. They didn't have it at the time. We got that working together. I was FBI trained as a sniper at that point. In '97, I applied and was accepted in the State Patrol Academy. I've been a state trooper ever since. For the State Patrol, I've done, I started off in Metro, worked in the Minneapolis area for 20 months. At that point, I transferred to Staples, where I was able to actually live together with my wife and my 3 children. We've lived in Staples for a year and then came to Park Rapids. I've been up here for 20 years. For the state, I do crash reconstruction. I've done over 800 reconstruction on serious and fatal crashes. I'm on the State Patrol Crash Reconstruction Advisory Board. I've been on there since like 2013, I think it was, we have on there. I was a team leader on the 35W bridge collapse on the reconstruction thing. I've been sent all over the state, good cases sent to me all over the state. So it's not a thing of integrity or those types of things with me. Been married for 29 years to my wife. We have 3 children. They've all grown up and came through Park Rapids school districts here. For me, it's this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back some of the training and stuff that I've been afforded in my career back to the community in which I live. I've been coached hockey for 15 years. I've coached baseball for 5 years. I teach driver's ed. I do the senior programs for the like the 55 Alive in the eastern part of the county and in Walker as well. Just a lot of different things. I started the DARE program. I'll stop there.
Thank you. We'll be alternating questions here. We'll start with you, Mr. Peterson. Question of concern from the northern part of the county. Since it's so far from Park Rapids, how can the Sheriff's Office increase and improve the coverage in this area? And how would you plan to implement that?
Well, I believe the county that they have set up now is the north and south station. With the north stations, I know there's a lot of emphasis put on Highway 2 and Highway 71. Working, what they need to do is allocate and look at the scheduling and see where there's actually maybe a little different scheduling we can maybe do to get something in there, get into the rural areas. I know for me, out talking to the people that I've been talking to in the northern part, they don't see any deputies, in some of the areas that are there. They're concerned about that. If we can concentrate and then actually have the deputies hit all 4 corners of the county. Make them stop at the local establishments, stop into the people, maybe have them pop there in supper hour or lunch hour, doing something. At least get some of the information back that's out there. These people they're wanting to give. What I've talked to is they don't know the deputies. They want to make sure that they actually have access to them. They feel comfortable with them, giving them information. There's a lot of things that I think we can do differently. Holding town hall meetings, different parts of the county in order to be able to at least get together and have them, come and meet. Similar to what we're doing here today. Give little updates on what's going on at the sheriff's office, what's going on with the drug things. I think a lot of the drug stuff that is going around is coming through the county roads now, not just on the state highways. But we need to allocate and make sure that the corners and the roads in the county remain covered.
Same question.
All right. As far as improving coverage up north, I have to tell you that the northern part of Hubbard County is the best covered area in the entire county. They get twice as much coverage currently as they do in the south end. At night, we have 2 deputies up here all the time compared to one in the south half. And people that maybe get the perception that there isn't officers up there, a lot of the times, maybe it's after dark that they're driving by their house. So, you know, there might be concerns, but I'm gonna say that it's false concerns, because like I say, the coverage is, we've done that for many, many years, where we have double coverage in the northern part of the town. And my crew works very hard, they patrol all areas, and my crew already does hit township meetings. That's a requirement that I've had for several years now, where they hit the township meetings, south end and the north end. So our coverage up north is already very well.
Carl, the stopwatch is messed up. Where's Cece?
I'm back here.
Sorry,
Get another
sorry.
stopwatch, sorry.
Somehow I got out of mode here.
Hey. Sheriff, what are you doing to curtail drug activity in Hubbard County?
Well, when I was elected in 2010, at the time, we didn't have a dedicated drug officer at all whatsoever. We had one previously, and for whatever reason, they did away with it as far as being on a drug task force. When I got elected, we went back and committed an officer, a full-time officer, back to a task force, or 2 task forces, actually. So we worked the drugs, as far as undercover with the Paul Bunyan Task Force and the Federal Safe Trails Task Force as well. And about a year ago, we went above and beyond that, and I added a second guy to that. Drugs is near and dear to my heart, and it's very important to my staff as well. And my 2 drug officers work very hard. This spring, we reported even down in this Minneapolis Star Trib, we had a drug bust where it netted 30 drug dealers in one shot. And the crew worked very hard at that, and I'm very proud of them. So we actually do work with them very hard.
Mr. Peterson, what would you do to curtail drug activity in Hubbard County?
Well, I would continue to do what they have been doing. I would advocate to add a couple more things to it. I know there are, for me, with the State Patrol, we do have different programs. We have the Drug Recognition Expert Program, which I've been a part of for several years. I let that go because of the recon thing. I would try to get at least a couple of the deputies to go through that program. So we have that interdiction on the road with the DRE program as well as that. There's also Desert Snow, which is for patrol officers, some drug interdiction, things looking for hidden compartments, just kind of looking for general locations and things that they're doing, just kind of target different areas. I would put together like a deputy task force, working with the local city and state. I know they do some of that now, but just have designated days where they're just going to go out and work this area. You're going to work strong drugs, because we all know that Minneapolis, a lot of the drugs are coming from Minneapolis going to either Cass Lake area or Bemidji and filtering back. We're a pretty good thoroughfare through that. Just need to get working on some of those things and get into start teaching some of the youth on the education, so we can at least get them making good choices. If the drugs are coming back, so at least have an indication either gonna use it or not use it. If we can get into some of that training with them into the schools, or having these safety things in order to give these youth good education and at least information that they can make the choices on their own, whether they choose to use it or not for safety things.
Now, there are state guidelines on police pursuits. What parameters do you believe are the safest?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, we all know, if you're reading listen to the news every day, police pursuits is a hot topic now. Part of it is there's different things you gotta look for: the who, what, when, where, and why. And you gotta look at did the ends justify the means? Is it worth pursuing somebody to think about the liability? You gotta look at it's a stolen car. Is that worth pursuing? You should look at it coming into a town. You do have to do some regulations on some of that. I would actually advocate for not just the supervisor terminating the pursuit, Because typically, I've been in several of them myself, as I'm sure the sheriff has, and most of the officers that have been in have been in pursuits. I personally, I don't like them. However, you get into that tunnel vision when you're chasing somebody, sometimes you forget to lose things, lose the thought process. You got people that are behind secondary and third units that are back there. I would actually advocate a policy to make sure that anybody can terminate a pursuit. You gotta look at the time, place, where it's at. Are they coming into Park Rapids on the 4th of July? Is it worth chasing anybody at that point? You know, what are the speeds? What's the danger issue? You know, there's just a lot of things that go into that with a pursuit. I would probably restrict it a little more than just letting it all go out. Be making sure that my vehicles are have push bumpers on, so all the deputies are pit certified. If we can end pursuit early with a pit within the parameter of the speeds, then I guess I would try to take that into consideration and hopefully terminate them quickly.
No supervisor likes pursuits. I mean, it's a potential for liability, but I'm gonna say this, it's a necessary evil at times. And I agree, I mean, it all depends on what the reason for your pursuit is. If it's a felony initiated, stop, it's one of those necessary evils. If you're coming into a town or a highly populated area, officers, and I'm proud of the job, my current staff does, they use common sense, and they have the authority to terminate their own pursuit at any time they want. Supervisors can do it as well, but I can't think of a time when I've had to make the call to do it, because my officers have exercised good common sense and have done a very good job. So, yeah, I have to stand by the fact that it's a necessary evil, but you have to weigh the risks as well. Put it in the hands of your officers.
Are there any female deputies on this staff? And what are you doing or planning to do to have a more equitable department?
Currently, we don't have any female deputy sheriffs. I mean, I have, a staff of probably 20 females, but as far as officers go, we don't. I did hire one. She went on to a different, position here probably 6 months ago, but if females don't apply, I can't hire them, So we do get an applicant every once in a while, but, we very seldom. So whether it's a male, female, it really doesn't matter to me. The best person is going to get the job. If I have a staff of all females, that means it was all females who were the best candidates. So, no, I would welcome them, and like I say, we had one, and she moved on to something else, but I certainly welcome. Absolutely.
What would you do or plan to do to make the department more equitable in hiring?
Well, first of all, it all goes back to advertising. I would go to the schools and set up and just do a little like a miniature job fair, because I know all the colleges, all the other ones have job fairs as well. Alex, Hibbing, Central Lake, some of them have them down there. You have to advertise to get them out there. Currently with the state patrol, we have numerous, or not numerous, but we have several females. We have a light colonel. We actually had a colonel at one point that was a female as well. Several majors, captains, and that. I have no problem hiring them. Kind of surprised that there isn't any. But again, if they don't apply, you can't hire what doesn't come through the door at time to apply. So you got to make sure you get out there, do a little recruiting, expand the recruitment out, and the letters going out to where they're at in the hiring process in order to get anything in there. Again, it's with the hiring board, you take the best applicant that comes through the door, because that's what you want. And you don't want to lower standards just to get somebody, just to say that you have somebody. You have to actually be proactive and going out and doing some active recruiting as well.
Next question for you also. How would you define community policing, and do you feel that community policing is still a practical model for Hubbard County?
It can be a practical model. I believe we need to get back to like the old style community service stuff. Go back and go to the communities, go to the town. Like I said earlier, go into the local establishments. I know I was up in Beside, they said they haven't seen a deputy up there since Jimmy Dragoon had retired. Stop in there at 4 or 5 o'clock, and a lot of the people there, or any of the other establishments that are around, get in there and communicate with them. The thing that I'm hearing as I'm out and about is that people don't know the deputies. Just stop in, visit with them, get their start talking to them, get a little more familiar with them, they're more comfortable with you, they're more apt to maybe give you some more information or, give you drug stuff that's coming through. Because they know what's going on in their areas, we maybe not if we're not up in there. So we have to get back in and start going through, and not just showing up at parades and, the big events. Just show up, community policing does not just stop at 5 o'clock in the evening. I mean, it's a 24/7, regardless of what's going on. You have to be there, you gotta be able to communicate with the people, get out and be with the people. I mean, that's what I did back when I was a deputy. The one thing the sheriff told me when I first started, he said, I don't care what you do in your shift, but you make sure that all 4 corners of the county get service, and you also make sure you're through in every single town. And stop in and visit with the people. To me, that's old school community policing, that's what we need to do.
Sure.
In rural, Minnesota, it's a little tougher, for the officers to stop in a lot, especially when you're spread out like you are, have the number of calls that you have. But, so what we do to kind of combat that, like I said earlier, the deputies currently are going to the township meetings, where they touch bases with the township supervisors and the people, and they do that on a regular basis. We also have officers that go in the schools multiple times a week, and they've done that for quite some time. There you get to touch base with the staff at the schools, the admin, and also kids as well, and parents off and on. I personally attend the Township Association meetings on a regular basis, which is every other month. That's where all the townships come to one meeting, all the township supervisors, and I presented to them at different times, and that's an excellent way to find out what's happening, where some problems or areas are, and I always stay late and have a lot of conversations with them as well. So.
Going back to our discussion on drug enforcement, what are the pros and cons of your plan? You said tell us what the pros are. What are the cons to your plan? What's not working?
I tell you what's not working is, and it's completely out of my hands, out of my staff's hands, out of the county attorney's hands, is sentences. And I'm talking about those that are selling drugs to our kids. The drug laws have really loosened up about a year or two ago, and things go from a felony to just a gross misdemeanor. And the sentences that these drug dealers get is, and then maybe it's not even the judge's fault. It's probably more so our sentencing guidelines, but it's very difficult, and that's what makes it tough. And you look at my staff, they go out, they work hard, they make arrests, and then somebody gets kicked, out of jail right away, or they get sentenced to just probation. That, I guess, is as frustrating as it gets. And I can see the frustration on my staff's, face when all of a sudden they hear that. But you have to keep, doing your job, because that's what we do.
Same question.
All right. I agree. A lot of that is the sentencing guidelines coming on down. I mean, we have talked about that in the past on different things having, seem like a mandatory sentence. Does not seem like it's a mandatory sentence anymore. However, what's not worth it, if we don't educate our youth to give them the options to make the smart choices or the correct choices in their life, if the drug dealers have nobody to sell the dope to, nobody's going to buy it. They're going to go out of business. A lot of that comes right back to education. Some of the older people, they're already set in their ways, it's going to be hard to change them. The younger ones, that's where I think like the DARE program or some sort of an education program in school, to get back into there, is tell these kids, show them what's going on, what they need to do, what not to do, the effects of some of these drugs. That to me is what's important. You're not going to probably get a lot of the older ones to change your mind, but if you can get the younger ones and slowly weed it out, it's a vicious problem. It's a sad cycle. As far as correcting it and getting it totally out of the way, if you can figure that out, you're a lot smarter guy than I am. But we need to, I think we need to get into school, start teaching these kids. We got to start teaching the young ones. The other problem I think that comes into play too, a lot of it with the opioids, is the doctors and the prescriptions, giving them a 10-day supply of hydrocodone or oxycodone for something, I would like to see a doctor maybe give you a 10-day supply. It goes into the pharmacy and you get 3 days worth. And after the 3 days, if you still need it, you go get it. If you don't need it, you're done. Because most people have prescription meds just laying around in their closets or cupboards at home with the grandkids or wherever else. These kids don't have the education in order to go back and not take the drugs. Okay with that, I'll
Next question, Mr. Peterson. What do you believe is the second most important public safety concern for Hubbard County?
The second most important. It's probably a community service thing. We have to get into community service. I think we have to have the citizens of the county know who the officers are, who the deputies are. That's where a lot of this information is going to come from. Yeah, there's a tip line, but I've gotten some information from people just going up and visiting them, like, hey, we got this going on, that going on. There's a lot of things that are coming in, and it's all communication. You can either, with the communication, if you don't do it right, you can shut people off, or if you're doing it correctly, they'll tell you their life story. It's just a lot of communication. To me, is probably the second biggest thing that we need to get working on here. And as far as getting out, getting into the public, getting into the community, and actually figuring out, what's going on, asking them, hey, what's going right in the county? Hey, what's not going right? Hey, what do we need to do to fix this program? Everybody has an opinion. But if you get a lot of the people that have the same opinion, then you go, okay, there must be something to this, or maybe you can start working on some of these programs.
Sure.
I'm gonna go back to the sentences that inmates get. I think, I personally think the drugs and specifically meth is probably the worst, as far as public safety goes in the county. And then the sentences that these people get, whether it's a burglar, and I'm not talking about an 18-year-old kid who, broke into a cabin and stole some beer, first offender. That's not what I'm talking about. But these career criminals that time and time again, that are simply, getting nothing out of it. Or multiple probation violations. You get sentenced to a year and have a year hanging over your head, you're placed on probation, and you violate your probation, they don't get a year. I've seen people with 5 probation violations, they still don't get their sentence executed. And I think that is absolutely a shame. A deal's not a deal.
Of the issues, though, that come under your purview, what would you say is the second most important issue?
Probably, I'm gonna say our violent crimes, I don't know if you can put much ahead of that. The drug epidemic, definitely number one, and, the violent offenses, whether it's the domestic abuse cases that we get, homicides, the sexual assaults, and even more so the child abuse that we get. And we get a lot of it. For whatever reason, Hubbard County we keep our investigators busy investigating child abuse cases, so I would say that part of it.
Same thing, Corey. How do you plan on improving relationships with your sheriff's office and the citizens?
I think we have a great relationship, with the citizens in Hubbard County. Obviously, there can always be, improvements made. As far as me personally, going to the township meetings has been a great, step, towards that. Having my deputies go, I hear nothing but positive things, that comes out of that. Do I get complaints on officers? Absolutely. Do we handle it? Yes, I do. I hold my staff accountable, and, whether we sit down and meet with the person complaining, we do that, and then we move on. But I honestly, I have a great relationship with a lot of people in the community, but I'm certainly open to talk as well, so.
Mr. Peterson, how would you go about improving relationships with the department and citizens?
Well, again, it's all about the community getting out into the public. Like I said, the law enforcement up here, it's not just a 9-to-5 job, it's everything. Me personally, I would be out and about with, like I said, again, all four corners. Obviously, when you're not in meetings, I realize that there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of things you have to attend. But still, you have to take time to go meet with the public. You have to get in all corners, you have to do different things. Like I said, I'm used to working nights. I've been working nights a lot of my career. For me personally, I'd come out in the afternoon, work in the evening, meet with your staff in the evenings, meet with the public in the evening. So you're not just stuck with them during the daytime, visiting with them, that type of stuff. But again, it's all communication. It's all communication, being out and about and seeing. There's a lot of people that really don't have a lot of big issues, but if you stop and talk to them, that makes their day. Hey, I saw the sheriff, or I saw the trooper, or I saw the chief, or whatever. There's people just want to visit and do just different things out there. For me, it would be just getting out and about and being with the public. Yeah, there are township meetings, there are different board meetings you go to. Personally, I would have, I'm a sports guy, I would have my guys go to the sporting events. Whether you're just standing there and fielding questions, or just people just see you there, they feel important. Everybody's always got a comment for you, whether it's a wisecrack or something else. But they just want to be seen. I would have them out and about doing different things. You don't have to stay there all night. Bop in there, see a little bit, walk around, visit with a few people, and move on. That's all you really have to do.
Pause here for a minute. If people have questions, Rick, you can receive a card, if you haven't got it with you, and
Bring them back here.
they're right back, they go back there, and the question will be written out, and the question can be asked from the podium. Dan, tell me, what will be your department goals for the next 4 years?
My department goal would be to actually have the deputies have a better relationship with the general public. Like I said, I've heard a lot of different things where people they don't know who the deputies are. They have nothing bad to say about them, they just said they don't know who they are. Get them out, get them into the communities, get them so they're going to some of these events, stopping and visiting with the people. Like I said, to get that, I would actually, another thing I was going to advocate is to get a canine dog just for drugs, just a drug interdiction dog. Get a deputy that's aggressive into the drug program. Get a few of the deputies trained in like the Desert Snow or some of the major drug interdiction programs. I know it might cost a little bit of money, but the training far outweighs the cost of it just with the benefits. I see with our canine dogs you're able to get. I have nothing against cross-trained dogs. I'm just more of a proponent of having a dog just strictly for drug interdiction. I'd want more training in the schools for the kids. Whether it's DARE or some other program like I mentioned earlier, get something in there. We have to get into the youth program. We got to get into the 2nd and 3rd grade and talk about these kids and drugs, because these kids nowadays are smarter in 2nd grade than I ever was in 2nd grade. Just because number one, the cell phones, the video stuff, the computers, everything they got going. So we have to drop our age down in order to get a hold and start talking to these kids. If we can give them the decisions, give them the equipment, give them the knowledge to make good life choices, hopefully, we'll take it through. Because you look at what it costs to take somebody through a drug rehab program, it's several thousands of dollars. I mean, unastronomical amount. I would want to get that. I would actually try to get a county-wide school resource officer, so that at least we can get somebody that at least bopped into these schools are we're going to have to deal with, rather than numerous deputies. Just have somebody that's a good contact person for the schools. And just advocate and try to be a good, working with all the department heads within the county to get my point across.
Corey, what are your department goals for the next 4 years?
One thing that we're going to continue to do, and I campaigned on this 8 years ago, we've been doing it, all along, and we're going to continue to work drugs very hard. When you see a big splash in the paper, I want more of that. I want more positive results, and my 2 guys, make a lot of progress that way. We're in the process of fundraising for a new canine, actually, but I have a little different perspective as far as just a single-purpose dog, and we're going to get another dual-purpose animal. There's just too many benefits that way. Our current dog is a phenomenal drug dog and a tracker. His bite work is excellent. So hopefully we can get another, great dog like Oakley. That he's an award-winning animal, and we've done great. But I think as far as money well spent, a dual purpose is the way to go. And another thing, just to simply continue making safety improvements in our schools. I sit on the school safety committees, and the improvements have been made lately just for obvious reasons, and they're making progress, and we just need to keep doing that. So.
As much as can be disclosed, what is your plan for handling any type of protest such as for line 3?
Well, all my deputies have received training in that, what's going to be needed when the time comes. I've sent officers to instructor level training in the field force down in, actually it was in Alabama, and we are getting prepared not only in our next year's budget, but in purchasing needed equipment, safety equipment for our officers. We are having regular meetings with our neighboring sheriff's offices and other agencies, because no one agency is going to handle this or is going to stand alone as far as when, if and when things happen. So, but yeah, we're doing regular training, regular planning, and we've met with the state and everybody in this region along the entire proposed route. So if something does happen, we're going to know what it's going to take to get it done, and we'll be well trained.
Tim, what would your plan be for handling protests such as line 3?
Well, there's several things to do. First of all, I have talked to some people on both sides, but what I told them is what I'd have to be as a sheriff is I have to be neutral. Because there are legal obligations, they have the right to protest, as long as it's done safely and in a peaceful manner. I've talked to both sides, like I said, I've told them that they are allowed to protest safely. Whether you're for or against it, as long as it's done safely and there's no threat. We definitely don't need another North Dakota incident here. And what I did tell them is, because I know with the state patrols that we have several on the mobile field force. I know the DNR has several, they're training right now for the mobile field force, as well as several of the counties surrounding. If need be, it does get out of that hand, and just make sure it had the resources available to get everybody there to be able to take care of that, take care of it as quick as we can, so it doesn't drag out. And we don't have another incident like this in North Dakota where it's just nothing but turmoil and just a dangerous situation for everybody involved.
Say you're elected, and the first thing the county board tells you, you have to decrease your budget by 5%. What would you do?
Me? Well, first of all, I'm going to have to look through it and see where things can be cut. I know over the last few years it's gone up quite a bit. I have those numbers. I did get from the auditor's office. I have all the state budget there. It has gone up substantially. To cut it by 5%, you have to look and see where you're able to make some cuts, where some of the excess spending has come from. Again, it's going to have to look through it, line by line, and just see where things can be cut. Whether it's obviously you can't cut wages or benefits, so it's either equipment. Maybe if you got to run your equipment an extra year or two, all depending on the miles and how safe those vehicles are. But like any other budget, a lot of it just hinges on what's in there. I guess trim the fat per se, but what you can cut off and what you can trim back a little bit, just try to curtail some of the spending. Because I know in the past 8 years it's gone up nearly almost $2 million. The last year, I have them on here, but it's gone up quite a bit. I wrote them all down here, but it was, like last year was $310,000. The year before was $342,000. These are up rates. 2015 it was up $374,000. The only year it's been down in the last 8 years was in between 2012 and 2013. It was minus $45,000 under budget. Other than that, it's been screaming, skyrocketing.
Corey?
You know, the one area we could, you know, you could maybe reduce a couple of squad cars, but, you know, he mentions, you know, trimming the fat. I'm proud to say we don't add fat to our budget. And sometimes we simply, when it comes to public safety, we simply might not be able to trim 5% of the budget. And I make this promise to everybody here tonight and everybody in the county, I'm never, ever gonna let a number in a line item in a budget come before public safety. You know, budgets go up, they're gonna go up probably every year. Wages go up, that's out of our hands. Prices of gas goes up, price of equipment goes up. What I'm not going to do, I'm not gonna go short-handed. I'm not gonna put, you know, public safety at risk. You know, if December rolls around and all of a sudden our overtime budget is exhausted, I'm not gonna tell my officers that they have to go home on a call and they can't, you know, go on anymore. That's simply not gonna happen. You know, budgets, you know, we do a very good job, you know, working with the budgets that we have, but, you know, the board sets our budgets and we do our best to work with them, but sometimes we're gonna be over. I mean, you can't predict a disaster, you can't predict some major crimes. You know, things can happen, and again, when it comes to public safety, I'm not gonna let a number come before that.
Conversely, the first of the year, county board says you're doing such a good job, we're gonna give you a 5% increase in your budget. What are you gonna do with that money?
You know, to tell you the truth, I'm not gonna spend it just to spend it.
But where would you?
Where would I? Well, if it's a one-year thing, or is it forever? I mean, sometimes, you know, we can always use additional staff. You know, we really can. I mean, this is a big county, and our officers are absolutely spread out, especially on day shifts, for example. It's tough. You know, at night we have more people on, but, so I guess I would probably, you know, add a patrol officer, is what I would do. And that would dip into that 5%, but it's certainly well needed, and we can certainly justify it.
Yeah.
Well, I would probably, kind of on the same line there, I would look at the, probably have at least with one more deputy if I could get one hired. A lot of that money would probably go to additional training. I'm a big proponent of training just because I've been in our teaching our academy for many, many years. You give them the knowledge, you give them the tools to take care of business. I think that training is invaluable. If you get your officers so they have the decent training, they're able to give the correct answers, you eliminate a lot of the different things that are out there. Again, I would do training, I would try to get another an officer at that point. That one would probably mainly be focused on the drug program here again, rather than just doing the patrol stuff. I think the more people we can get tied up and try to get some of these drug stuff curtailed, at least get a handle on some of it, a little more intel, that type of thing. Then whatever's left over, I guess we could try to go for equipment, but again, it doesn't, just because they give it to you doesn't mean you gotta go squander it and just to burn it up. But if it's justified and it's good information, good stuff that's coming out of it, then I have no issue.
Okay. Can you describe your relationship with other agencies that you deal with in the county, such as social services and BCA, etc.?
For me, I don't actually deal with the social services too much. There's other law enforcement agencies who deal with surrounding counties. For me, what it would be like the BCA, the investigators, as a sheriff, you mean, or right now? As a sheriff? As a sheriff, I'm trying to...
No, right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm dealing with a lot of different counties, especially with the reconstruction end of it, counties and the cities that are there. Communication with them. Social services, I don't have any contact really with them too much at this point. I don't deal with the mental health issues other than what we see on the road at that point. Then we refer them over to the county to try to get things in there. But as far as the rapport with them, I don't think there's any issues with any of the rapport with anybody that's working there. We have issues, you try to communicate with people.
Social services, we have a great relationship with them. I mean, my staff works with their staff just about on a daily basis. Have a great relationship with their supervisors as well. BCA, we have a great relationship with, their agents, plus the supervisors up there. In fact, the BCA stole one of my investigators a while back, so I still see him all the time, and great relationship there. Park Rapids Police Department, which is in our county, great working relationship there. Me personally with their chief, and our officers with their officers, get along great. Neighboring counties, I can't say enough as far as how good we get along. So.
Okay. Forgetting what's in your campaign literature, what you've told us tonight, tell us one thing you'd like the voters to know, and how does this affect your desire to be the sheriff?
Can you kind of rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, what would you like, one thing you'd like the voters to know about you that's not in your campaign literature you ever talked about?
I think I had a desire to be your sheriff ever since I was in high school. And that was my goal on day one. It was my goal. I mean, my dad had friends in law enforcement here with Hubbard County, was friends with the sheriff. And so I grew up with the officers, rode with them, and it was something that I wanted to do. And so as a kid, I was focused this way, and got my first job, 28 years ago. I was hired as a road deputy, and 15 years later, I was a supervisor. 5 years after that, I was 40 years old, and I was running for sheriff. It was absolutely my dream job. And here I am, 8 years later, running again, and I still have things that I want to accomplish. And it's my home county, and I love it here, and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Well, part of it's for me. I've been in law enforcement a lot of years. I started as a deputy too. For me, actually, I'll be able to retire if I want to. I have no desire to retire. I still think I have a lot left to give. The things I want to do is I want to give back some of the education, some of the training, and work in an area where I've been at. I feel I owe this to this county and the people here because I've been here for so long. It's never been about the money. I've never checked into what the wages are for the sheriff. To me, that was not the issue. The issue was what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back into old school community policing. Just because some of the things that I've heard that, like I said, the people don't know it, get back in there, lead by example. And just work with the things that I wanted to do. Like I said, with the education and the training that I do have, I just feel that I want to get that back into the younger deputies that are here. Not just the deputies, I guess the officers, city officers, whoever's around. Put on some of the trainings, do those types of things. That's just the desire that I've had. If I can be a little selfish, I guess I love being a trooper, but I enjoy being a deputy as well, getting out and about. I mean, when you're out in this area, this rural area like this, I mean, just the uniform color really shouldn't mean anything. Because you still got to back up who's ever there, and you got to go to the calls with them. I just want to get back to the area where I'm at, just because of all the things that I've done in my career. Get back into the community policing, kind of get things on back, and get back into the people have good respect, trust, don't have an issue with any of the deputies. We're willing to give them the information at our feet. That's what I'm trying to get back to there.
That's the end of our questions. And we'll have 2 minutes now to wrap up. And if you start, Dan, give us your final statement. You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. Well, what you've heard here today is just a lot of different questions on here. I really would like the chance to be the sheriff of the county. Like I've told people in the past, if for some reason, if I'm elected after the 4 years, I don't feel that I held up the end of the bargain, things that I said that I wanted to get done, I will not run again. And part of that goes back into the core values the state patrol has. Like I said, I was the 2017 Trooper of the Year last year. Our values that we deal with is respect, courage, honor, and integrity, and excellence. I feel that I would be a good representative for the county. I'm not from this county originally. I have really no ties here other than a few family members, which kind of makes it, for me, a little easier. My youngest son will be 17, or he's 17 now, he'll be graduating this year. At that point, I had really no ball games to go to, so I could start getting out and being out in the public and being in the community a little more than where people are used to seeing me. Probably I'm out and about now the way it is. All I can tell you to people is when you go to make your vote, do your homework, do some research, and regardless of who you vote for, whether it's for sheriff, Congress, or whoever, do some homework, look into what you want, look at what you're getting. If you feel the county could use a little different change, a little different view, a little different opinion on some things, hey, give me a crack at it. If not, that, it's up to you. Nobody knows what you're gonna vote unless you tell them. Once you go in there and cast your vote, that's on you.
Corey, how about you?
Between the two of us, there's truly many things that separates me and my past. We're totally two different people. Different colored uniform, that's the minor thing. But keep this in mind, only one of us has extensive supervisory experience. I got 13 years of supervisory experience, and I supervise many, many people, and that's huge in the office of sheriff. Only one of us has extensive experience in budgeting. I have a $4.7 million budget, and we can't take that lightly. 8 years of doing that budget. Only one of us has experience in running a jail. We have a large jail. We have 1,400 inmates that come through our doors every year. And that's, some would consider the jail an albatross to what we have. And in some ways it's true, but it's something that we have and we're dealing with it. And last year we had $500,000 in revenue off of that jail. And you don't get that by not being proactive as far as having, inmates from other counties. Only one of us has experience in running multiple departments. Patrol, jail, dispatch, boat and water, sentence to serve crews, civil process, and our emergency management. That is a lot happening at one time that we deal with every single day. I don't have all the answers, but my staff works hard, and it definitely shows. What are you going to fix if something isn't broken? My crew works hard, and we work hard every single day. We have a great running sheriff's office, and we strive to make things better every day. If we were running for a trooper position, I'd tell you he's your guy, 100%, but we're not. The sheriff's position is so much more than that. Thank you.